Hello everyone, my name is Brian Salato, and today I'll be sharing you my SDAIE lesson plan on the Pythagorean theorem. We'll begin with the lesson background first. Subject matter for this lesson will be mathematics. The topic of the lesson will be the Pythagorean theorem. The grade level for this topic will be 8th grade, and the ELD language level will be intermediate, although early advanced and advanced students can blossom in this lesson as well. We also have a content focus here. As we can see, the intended focus of the lesson is to have students not only use the Pythagorean theorem, but to understand its uses in other mathematical contexts and real-life scenarios. The students will get a better understanding of its importance in geometry and structures. Students will be able to see how ancient societies use this theorem and see how it applies to modern-day surveying. The Common Core state standards for California and the ELD California standards addressed in this lesson will be applying the Pythagorean theorem to determine unknown side lengths in right triangles in real-world and mathematical problems in 2 or 3 dimensions. The ELD standards here, exchanging information and ideas, interacting via written English, and listening actively. The lesson begins with these into strategies. Beginning first with the brainstorming strategy, where students will be asked the question, how did the ancient Egyptians build 90-degree angles without the aid of modern technology? During this time, there will be a picture of the Giza Plateau in Egypt where the pyramids are. They'll break into groups of 4, discuss what they believe the answer is, and afterwards share with the class. Once all groups have shared, they'll be introduced to the Egyptian rope example and explain how during these times, Egyptians would place 3 people at different parts of the rope, one at 3 knots, one at 4 knots, and one at 5 knots. When pulled tightly, these knots will form a right triangle. This also allows the English language learners to understand what a right triangle is and a better visual aid. During this time, they will also receive a piece of string with the 12 knots, so they have a manipulative to have during the time they are doing their guided work. The rationale for this into strategy is to motivate students to expand their thinking and share ideas with one another in a small setting. The 3 strategies for this lesson will begin with the introduction to the Pythagorean theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equal to c squared. They'll be given examples of how the Pythagorean theorem works, as well as visuals for the English language learners. They'll begin with abstract visuals, as we've seen here, of how to solve with the Pythagorean theorem, and move on to real-life representations with the ladder and building as an example here. Once we have completed all examples, the students will begin guided work, which will be a handout. Students will solve this through pair work, where one student will solve an equation while the other coaches and ensures that they are using the Pythagorean theorem correctly. Once a problem has been solved, the roles will alternate for the students, and they will start with a new problem. After each equation, the students will then share their answers with the class to ensure that they are understanding how the Pythagorean theorem works. The rationale for this is that pair work allows students to interact and cooperate, while the English language learners get extra support in the theorem if needed. The beyond strategies for the lesson will begin with the send-up problem strategy. While still in pairs, students will create 4 problems using the Pythagorean theorem and trade them with another team. Once they have traded, the teams will try to solve each other's problems. Once they've completed it, they will return the problems to the original team, and they will be graded on how well they did. The rationale for this is that English learners continue to have interactions with native speakers while seeing the theorem in a different perspective, as they will need to create problems rather than solve them. To close out the lesson, students will be asked to journal. They will start out by being asked to think back to the pyramid question and journal and reflect on how it relates to the Pythagorean theorem. They will also journal on how else the theorem may be used, such as finding distance between 2 points. This will serve as a way to connect today's lesson with the next day's lesson. These journals will also be used as a ticket out the door. During the lesson, EL students had chances to practice their reading skills, their writing skills, their speaking and listening skills, as well as their hands-on experience.